I didn't notice the voice at first. It slipped into my life the same way a draft slips through an old window, quiet, subtle, almost polite. If I hadn't been awake at 3 in the morning that night, staring at the faint glow of my phone screen, I don't think I would have heard it at all. But silence does strange things when the world is asleep. It becomes heavier, thicker, like it's pressing against your eardrums, demanding to be filled. That night, it filled itself. I remember how the room felt colder than usual. Not freezing, just cold enough that the sheets against my skin felt like they had soaked up a hint of winter. The air smelled faintly of dust, the kind that drifts from bookshelves when you haven't moved anything in a while. I lay on my back, listening to the low hum of my old refrigerator through the wall, watching its tiny vibrations shake a hairline crack in my ceiling. And that's when I heard it. A whisper. Soft. Close. But not to me. It wasn't the kind of whisper where you turn your head and ask someone to repeat what they said. No. It was the kind of whisper meant for someone else entirely, like overhearing people talking about you from the next room. Only there was no next room. No one else. Just me. Just me, and that whisper curling out of the darkness. A single, almost curious sentence. He's awake again. My body stiffened so fast I felt a sharp pinch at the base of my spine. I didn't sit up, didn't move. I just lay there, breathing slowly, listening. At first I thought maybe it was a leftover sound from a dream, some echo of a memory crossing wires with whatever half-awake thoughts were drifting through my head. But then the whisper came again. Not louder, not clearer, just closer, right beside me. He always wakes around this time. I felt the hairs rise on my arms one by one, a slow wave crawling up to my shoulders. The room seemed to darken, as if the corners pulled further into shadow. I turned my head, inch by inch, toward the empty space next to me on the mattress, the dip where someone would lie if I didn't live alone. No one lay there. Still, the whisper breathed into the quiet. He doesn't know yet. My mind spun like a loose wheel, slipping, failing to catch on anything solid. Did I leave the TV on? Was a neighbor talking through the vents? Was I finally losing it after months of insomnia? All of those thoughts came fast, overlapping, desperate. But beneath them, deeper and far more terrifying, was another thought, one that rose slowly, like a shadow spreading across the floor. What if the voice wasn't trying to speak to me, because it wasn't supposed to? What if I wasn't the audience at all? What if I was just the subject? The voice went silent for a long moment. The kind of silence that makes your chest tighten because you start imagining what might be waiting inside it. And then, finally, another whisper, almost amused. He hears us now. I felt something shift inside me. A drop. A lurch. Like when you miss the last step of a staircase in the dark and your whole body jerks in panic. My throat tightened. My mouth tasted like metal. I couldn't bring myself to look around the room anymore. I stared at the ceiling, at that crack, as if it could anchor me somehow. My pulse thudded in my ears. One beat. Another. Then the whisper, softer than before, as if it were drifting away. Don't let him know we're watching. The coldness in the room deepened. And then everything went quiet. Completely, suffocatingly quiet. I lay there for what felt like an hour, maybe more, until the hum of the refrigerator began to sound normal again, and my heartbeat gradually stopped clawing at my ribs. When I finally fell asleep, it was out of exhaustion, not peace. But the worst part wasn't the whisper itself. It was the way it felt familiar, like it had been there before, waiting for me to notice, waiting for me to wake up. I woke the next morning with the kind of heaviness in my skull that feels like someone had been pressing their thumb into the center of my forehead all night. The kind of pressure you can't massage away. A weight that doesn't belong to you. For a few seconds I didn't remember the whisper at all. The sunlight coming through my blinds was warm, soft, almost honey-colored, so gentle that it felt like the world was telling me the night had been nothing but a dream. A stupid, tired hallucination from someone who hadn't been sleeping right for weeks. But when I rolled onto my side and saw the empty space beside me, the part of the mattress that had seemed so occupied in the darkness, the memory shot back with painful clarity. "He's awake again." The words echoed in my mind like someone dropping a pin inside a vast, hollow room. I touched the mattress. It was cold. Not the normal cold of morning sheet. Cold in the way something becomes when a body hasn't been there for a long time. I closed my eyes and exhaled through clenched teeth, trying to steady myself. The air in the room had that faint stale smell, the smell of someone who had slept with their mouth open all night. But beneath it, there was something else. A metallic undertone, like old coins, or blood. Very faint, but unmistakable. "Get a grip," I whispered to myself. Talking out loud brought a strange comfort, a reminder that my voice was real, physical, anchored to a body. The whispers from the night felt like they had come from a place without lungs, without breath, without weight. I got up slowly, feeling the floorboards cool against my feet. The light through the window cast long stripes across the room, making the shadows look deeper between each line. Dust floated in the beams of sunlight, drifting lazily, like they were moving through molasses instead of air. Everything felt slower today, as if the world itself was being cautious. In the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed the same dull, low tone it always had, but it sounded different now. Less like background noise, more like a voice trying to say something too muffled to understand. I paused, listening. The hum wavered slightly, a tiny tremble, and my chest tightened. This is ridiculous, I thought. I've been working too much. I've been up too late. I'm hearing things. Everyone hears things when they're exhausted. But as I poured coffee into a mug, my hand stopped halfway to my lip. The steam rising from the surface curled in delicate spirals, and in the soft crackle of the old heating system kicking on, I heard, clear as breath against glass, "He's trying to ignore us." The mug slipped slightly in my grip. I almost dropped it. My eyes darted around the room, scanning corners, doorways, reflections on metal surfaces. It was all empty, clean, normal, but the voice wasn't coming from any direction. It was coming from inside the sound itself, as if the air had become a throat. I backed into the counter, heartbeat thudding like a fist inside my chest. Another whisper followed, overlapping with the low hum of the heater. "Don't startle him yet." Yet, that word burrowed into me like a needle. I swallowed hard. My breath came thin and shaky, and I realized my hands were trembling, not violently, but in tiny little tremors, like my body was trying not to shiver. I forced myself to speak out loud. "Who's there?" The moment the words left my mouth, the house seemed to react. The heater clicked off abruptly, plunging the kitchen into a silence that felt almost physical, like a sudden drop in air pressure. For a moment there was nothing. No whisper, no sound, just a deep, suffocating stillness. And then, a soft, slow, almost thoughtful murmur. "He thinks we're separate from him." My breath hitched. A pause. "He doesn't understand yet." My vision blurred at the edges for a second, the way it does right before you faint. I blinked rapidly, gripping the counter until my knuckles burned white. The sunlight in the room seemed colder now, as if the warmth had drained out of it entirely. "What do you mean?" I whispered. Silence. No whisper. No response. Just the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. For a moment I wondered if I had imagined it entirely. Stress, sleep deprivation, whatever excuse my brain wanted to cling to. I even laughed once, a short broken sound that didn't feel like it came from me. That laugh died instantly when I heard one last whisper, not behind me, not beside me, but directly inside the clock's ticking. A quiet, pleased, almost melodic breath. "He's asking the right questions now." I stared at the clock, and the clock ticked back. The next hours didn't feel like hours at all. They passed like something thick and syrupy was dragging time itself down, stretching it, warping it. I kept trying to tell myself I was imagining things. Stress, exhaustion, a bad dream mixing with reality, but every time the house settled, every time a pipe clicked, Every time my floorboards groaned under their own age, I felt my body tense in expectation, waiting for it, dreading it. By noon, the sunlight through the windows had thinned into a washout, almost brittle brightness. The kind that doesn't feel warm. The kind that feels like the world is trying too hard to look normal. I moved into the living room, pacing in slow, uneven circles. My mind kept replaying the whispers from the clock. I didn't want to look at it, but it was the only thing in the room that seemed to stare back. Tick, tick, tick. Each sound was too crisp, too sharp, like something pressing its tongue to the back of each syllable. I finally grabbed the clock off the wall and slammed it face down on the coffee table. The sound echoed through the room, too loud, too hollow. And then the ticking stopped. Completely. Like I had just smothered a heartbeat. I stood there, listening to the silence. A deep cold settled into the back of my neck, creeping downward like chilled fingers. The kind of cold that meant something had changed. I whispered to myself, "Good. That's better. Just stop feeding into it. It's nothing." But even I didn't believe that. My phone buzzed on the couch beside me, making me jump. The screen lit up with a notification. Voicemail. NO caller ID 003 seconds. I stared at it. I hadn't heard the phone ring. My thumb hovered over the message, dread settling under my ribs like a stone. Finally I pressed play. At first there was only static. A soft, delicate static, like someone breathing against a microphone from very far away. Then, under the static, a low, faint whisper surfaced. Not directed at me. Not addressing me. Talking about me. "He thinks turning the clock over will stop us." My throat tightened so violently I had to brace myself on the arm of the couch. Another whisper, closer this time. "He doesn't realize we don't live in objects." A third voice, so faint it felt like it came from somewhere behind my own heartbeat. "We live in attention." I snapped the phone shut so fast it slipped from my hand and clattered onto the floor. I backed away from it as if it might lunge. My pulse thudded in my ears, loud enough to drown out every other sound in the room. I pressed my palms against my temples and squeezed. "Stop," I muttered. "Stop. Stop." But the silence after the voicemail felt wrong. Too expectant. Like something was listening intently to what I would think next. I moved into the kitchen, trying to focus on the ordinary. The texture of the table under my hand, the faint citrus smell from the dish soap, the hum of the fridge returning steady and soft. For a moment it worked. The world felt real again. Then the refrigerator hum wavered. Just once. Barely noticeable. Until I heard the whisper woven inside the vibration. "He's trying to distract himself." I closed my eyes. My breath came shallow, uneven. Fear wasn't the right word anymore. This was something colder, sharper. A kind of dread that seeped into the bones, into the tiny spaces between thought and instinct. I opened my eyes and the room felt different. Not darker. Not colder. Just observe. Like the air itself had weight. I stepped backward slowly, as if any sudden movement might provoke whatever was happening. My heel bumped the chair leg, and the tiny scrape against the tile sounded too loud. And then, another whisper. Not from an appliance, not from my phone, not from the room, but from inside my skull, not at me, not to me, but once again. About me. "He's starting to understand what we are." My breath stopped. A pause. A soft shift in tone, almost like excitement. But not why we chose him. My knees nearly buckled. I gripped the kitchen counter for support, fingers digging into the edge hard enough to hurt. I swallowed, voice breaking as I whispered, "Why me?" The air stretched thin around me. For a long moment there was no answer. Then, a whisper, so close it felt like it brushed the inside of my right ear. "Because he listens." I jerked away, spinning, but there was nothing. No presence, no shape, nothing to point at or run from. Just empty air. Empty, waiting air. I staggered to the sink, turned on the cold water, and splashed my face. The shock helped. The world snapped a little more into focus. For maybe 30 seconds I could breathe. Then, faintly, from somewhere behind the running water, a soft conversational murmur. "He's trying to wash us off." Another voice, sounding amused. "As if we're on the surface." A third voice, deeper. "We are already under the skin." I slammed the faucet off. Water dripped down my face, mixing with sweat. My own reflection in the window above the sink looked distorted by the streaking water, my eyes too wide, too bright, too afraid. I forced myself to whisper, barely audible, "What do you want from me?" The answer came instantly. Not one voice, dozens, layered, whispering, overlapping, a chorus of murmured breaths. "We want to be heard." And then, softer. "And he hears us better than anyone." My chest tightened so sharply I thought for a moment I might faint. But the whisper that followed, the whisper that came next, changed everything. Because it wasn't about me. It wasn't describing me. It was describing something else. Something behind me. "He hasn't noticed the one who finally stepped closer." I froze. Every muscle in my body went rigid. The kitchen seemed to tilt, the air thickening around me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't turn around. My lungs burned with held breath. The chorus of whispers clicked together in a single, delighted murmur. "Yes, now he feels it." Something warm exhaled against the back of my neck. I didn't move. My feet felt cemented to the tile, the air pressing down against my lungs as if trying to suffocate me from the inside out. That warm exhale lingered on the back of my neck, heavy, almost tactile. I could feel it brushing along my hair, sliding across my shoulders like it had substance, like it was real. I forced my eyes to the window over the sink. My reflection shimmered in the glass, distorted by the streaks of water and the weak light from the overcast afternoon. I expected to see my wide-eyed panic mirrored back at me. But I didn't. Not exactly. The figure staring back was me, and yet not me. The outline was all wrong. Too sharp at the jawline, eyes too deep, almost black in the irises, the skin unnaturally pale. Its lips moved, and I could hear my own voice in perfect sync, except the words weren't mine. "He doesn't know what we see." I stumbled back, knocking into the counter. The reflection didn't flinch, didn't blink. It kept speaking, its voice overlapping with the chorus in my skull. "So easy to slip under the surface, so blind to the shadows you carry." My heart slammed against my ribs like a wild animal. I reached for the knife block on the counter, my hand shaking, grip slipping over the smooth handle of a chef's knife. I swung toward the reflection, almost expecting it to shatter, expected shards to rain down and expose whatever this thing was, but it didn't. It smiled. A slow, cruel smile that wasn't my own. "Stop it," I whispered aloud, my voice cracking. "Stop. I don't know what you want." The reflection raised a hand, my hand, and pointed directly at me. The motion was slow, deliberate. Every fiber in my body screamed to run, but I couldn't. I was trapped in the horrifying synchronization of our movements. It was like watching a puppet imitate its puppeteer, only the puppet had thoughts of its own. The whispers rose again, louder, now surrounding me like wind through a ruined cathedral. "He is seeing himself, but he will never know himself. We are beneath him, above him, around him. He listens so well, yet sees so little." The floor beneath me groaned. I glanced down at my shadow stretching across the tiles. It wavered, elongating in impossible directions. And then, impossibly, it began to move independently. It twisted, coiled around itself, forming shapes that my mind couldn't reconcile with physics or reason. I stumbled back toward the doorway, tripping over a rug, my knife clattering to the floor. My reflection still moved with me, mimicking every step, but also leaning into things my body wasn't doing. Its smile widened and my stomach dropped. The house suddenly felt like it was tilting, walls breathing in and out, air thick and heavy. Then, faintly, I heard something that made my blood run ice cold. A voice, soft, deliberate, coming from inside the walls. Finally, he's noticed. I pressed my palms to my ears, desperate to drown it out, but the sound was inside me now, resonating in my skull. I wanted to scream, but my throat seized. Something shifted behind me. Something solid. Something moving closer. "He doesn't know who's real," the chorus whispered in a delighted cadence. "But soon, he will learn." I spun toward the kitchen door, expecting, praying, for my roommate to be there. But it was empty. Only the shadows stretched impossibly along the walls, twisting as if alive, reaching for me. I backed into the living room, adrenaline surging, and realized with horror, the whispers weren't just in my head anymore. They were everywhere. The walls themselves were speaking. The floorboards, the windows, even the furniture, creaking, shifting, whispering. And through it all, the reflection in the kitchen window kept grinning. It was waiting for me to look away. And I knew, that if I did, it would step out. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every corner of my apartment seemed alive, whispering, breathing, mocking me in a language I didn't understand but instinctively feared. Even the hum of the refrigerator sounded like a growl, steady and waiting. My phone glowed with notifications I hadn't sent or received, alarms I hadn't set, each one repeating the same words. "We are here. We know you." By morning, I was pale, trembling, my body wound tight as a spring. I tried to convince myself that it was exhaustion, paranoia, maybe even hallucination. Rational thought, though, fled before the memory of that reflection and the chorus of voices. I had to know. I had to understand. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to the room that had started it all. My bedroom, the place where the whispers began. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Sunlight seeped through the blinds, yet it didn't warm the space. Shadows pooled unnaturally in the corners. My bed was unmade, though I had left it pristine. The mirror, which had once been innocuous, now dominated the room. Its surface shimmered slightly, like liquid glass, reflecting the faint light in a way that made the edges bend unnaturally. I approached slowly, every footstep exaggerated in the eerie silence. My reflection greeted me immediately, mouth moving before I even spoke. "He finally listens." I stumbled back. Who are you?" I croaked. "We are the ones you've never noticed," it said. Its voice was no longer mine, though it echoed perfectly with my own intonation. "The ones under the floorboards, in the walls, in the spaces where no one looks. The missing. The forgotten. Those who were lost and now awatch." I froze. The words, the missing. Faces flashed in my mind, names from old newspapers, online lists, missing person reports I'd scrolled past in the dead of night. They were everywhere. And now it was telling me, they were here. "You mean all of them? All those people?" My voice was barely audible. "Yes. And you've seen them. You just didn't know." The mirror began to ripple like disturbed water. Shapes formed, vague, fleeting. Faces of men, women, children, all featureless, yet horrifyingly detailed in their silence. And then, a voice, clear and singular among the chorus. "He must join us, to see as we see." My stomach churned. Join you? I don't understand. You listen, and we speak. You watch, and we are free. I tried to turn, to escape, but the room had changed. The door was gone. The shadows on the walls had thickened, pooling, crawling like liquid ink. The air was heavy, damp, smelling faintly of earth and decay. My own heart beat like a drum, loud enough to drown out rational thought, yet the voices, overpowered it, whispering. "Stay. Watch. Learn. Join." I felt the floor shift beneath me. I looked down, and there were hands, dozens of hands, emerging from the floorboards, pale and cold, clawing, grasping. They didn't hurt me, but their weight, their presence, pressed down on my chest. I fell to my knees, gagging on fear and disbelief. "You are ready," the mirror said. "We have always been waiting." And then it clicked in my mind. I had always been listening, always watching, always waiting. The mirror's surface quivered again, and in a horrifying, fluid motion, my reflection began to step out of the glass. I screamed, lunging backward, but my body felt sluggish, heavy, resisting every instinct. My reflection reached the floor, and as it touched it, the chorus of voices erupted into a cacophony so loud it rattled my skull. He sees us. He becomes one of us. The missing are never gone. We are all here. Waiting. Always. The last thing I saw before blacking out was my own face, my reflection, smiling at me, perfectly, impossibly, as if mocking my terror, as if promising that I would never, ever be alone again. When I awoke, it wasn't morning. It wasn't night. Time had lost meaning. The room was different, warped, infinite, as though I were standing inside the reflection itself. The walls stretched into darkness, the floor melted into shadows, and the ceiling was gone, replaced by a swirling void of dim, flickering lights. I couldn't move. Or maybe I didn't dare. Every step, every breath, felt as if it had consequences beyond my understanding. The mirror, or whatever it had become, hung in the air before me. It was no longer just a reflection. It was a window into something ancient, endless, and patient. From within it, faces pressed forward. Some familiar, some entirely alien. All featureless, all whispering in unison. They moved unnaturally, gliding, stretching, twisting. And they knew me. Every fear, every secret, every failure of my life was mirrored back with clinical precision. He knows now, the voices chorused. He understands. The missing are never gone. The watching never ends. The voice he heard was not a warning. It was an invitation. I realized then, too late, that the whispering voice had been present long before the mirror ever appeared. It had been inside me, narrating, shaping my thoughts, molding my attention, guiding me without my knowledge. Every choice I thought was mine had been influenced, every fear and hesitation amplified. I stumbled backward, if I could call it stumbling, toward what I thought was the door. But there was no door. Only endless, dark space. And then, a sound unlike anything else. The clicking of nails against glass, slow, deliberate, coming from every direction at once. "Join us," the mirror breathed, voice deepening, resonating through my bones. "Watch. Learn. Be." Panic surged. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I pressed them against the mirror's surface. It was cold, colder than ice, yet warmer than blood. And when my fingers made contact, a shock ran through me. Not pain. Not electricity. Something older. Something sentient. Something that recognized me. "He is ready," the chorus whispered. "Ready to become part of the eternal audience. Ready to watch as we watched. Ready to speak as we spoke." I tried to turn away, to flee, but my body refused. My limbs were no longer mine. My reflection, or the thing that had stepped out of it, moved toward me. Its hands, identical to mine, reached out. I realized with pure horror, they were not reaching for me. They were reaching from me. In that moment, I understood the truth. I had never been alone. The missing, countless, faceless, had been watching through the veil of the living. Every security camera I had installed, every reflective surface I had ignored, every shadow I had brushed past, they were conduits. The voice in my head wasn't a hallucination. It was the conduit speaking through me, gathering my attention, teaching me to see as they saw. And now I was to join them. The reflection merged with me. My vision shattered into shards, each shard showing a different place, a different missing person, each still waiting, each trapped in the endless observation of the world. Faces pressed against me from the shards, whispering my name, their words forming a pattern I could not untangle. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed. My body dissolved, pulled apart into countless reflections, countless watching eyes. My consciousness stretched thin, multiplied, split into millions of whispers. I became one of them, one of the missing. Yet my awareness persisted, and I realized the final, horrifying truth. I could see my old body lying alone in my apartment. The security cameras showed me, now an empty shell, staring at nothing. And in the reflection of each monitor, my new self was watching, speaking, waiting. And the whispers, oh, the whispers, began again, soft, relentless. He is part of us. He sees. He listens. He waits, as we wait, forever. There was no escape. There never had been. The missing were never gone. And now I was one of them,